job and become a travel writer and just kind of like give up what they're doing because of the headaches that world can give them and everything. So when you run into folks like that and that's what you're doing, what advice do you give them? Do you just tell them go for it, or do you what steps do you think folks should do if they're ready to like live the kind of life that you're living?
Well, they have to be either desperate or crazy to live the kind of life that I'm living. Like, this life is not meant for anyone who likes comfort or ease. But for me, like I was doing political communications. I had my own business. I lived in Raleigh. I had clients in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I gave everybody a choice whether they wanted to sign on with me when I moved to Mexico, or we could end their contract before I left. And everyone said, oh, yes, we're going to stay with you. We're going to stay with you. So about 6 months to a year after I moved, all of my clients dropped me. And I had to figure out a way to make money or come back to the United States. And I did not want to come back to the United States. Unfortunately, my mother, who was the last of my immediate family, died about 2 weeks before I moved to Mexico. It breaks my heart, and it still breaks my heart today. But she had a little bit of money left in the bank, and I didn't touch it. And so when I found myself without any clients, I decided that would be a good time to go get that money since it was mine. And along the way, this sounds so bizarre when I say it out loud. So I was on Facebook one day, and a friend of mine had posted something about Eminem, like coming after Trump in this cipher, and I commented on his post. And it just so happened that my friend was the breaking news editor for CNN.com, and he messaged me privately and said, that would make an awesome opinion piece for CNN. And within an hour, I had a contract, and I was writing my first piece for CNN. And that led to other clients. Once I got that one big thing, and I started writing about food and travel for other smaller outlets, people now kind of find me. I don't have to market too much. So the advice that I would give people is to make sure you have a solid plan and realize that that plan will be completely demolished once you move. Nothing will be the way you think it'll go, but that's okay. You didn't fail. You just have to decide whether you're in it to win it, or if you've had the experience that you want to have and you want to go back to the States. Each person's journey is different. You can do as much research as you want to. You can have everything plotted out, but it won't go the way that you think it will. And so you have to rely on your resilience and your faith. One of the biggest things that I'm proud of living here is that I built my faith, and I don't want to push my faith on other people, but a lot of days I'm just like, this was nothing but God, because I don't know how I survived in this country without God. So you do, whether you believe in God or not, you do need to have some bit of faith and some bit of resilience. It's nice if you have some money, but moving abroad is a lot more expensive than you think it'll be, and you have to be willing to do things that you wouldn't want to normally do. So, for example, I've been writing for a travel app. It's not great money, but it's money. So, it's money that I have, and it affords my lifestyle here. So I hope that I answered your question.
You did. And Jack, if you're still on the line, I hope you are, it seems like that she's living the life that you're talking about with digital transformation. Am I correct?
You're absolutely right. And it's so awesome when we can see these things converging, like the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together, when we can see that doing the right thing and, being authentic to ourselves, can really come into convergence, and the technology to support that. Yeah, this is good stuff.
And I'm just wondering, Kerra, how much has the digital part played in your career? Because I'm thinking that if you're all the way in Mexico, but you still had some clients at some point in Raleigh, but they have now not with you, but if you're picking up other clients, I imagine that some of these travel apps and other things are not based in Mexico. So how important is the whole digital way to you and your business? It seems to me that it would be very important.
It's everything to me. And, Mexico, for all of its beauty, is still a developing country in some aspects. And I live in the part of the country that was not actually a state until like 40 years ago. So within my lifetime, this part where I live, it became a Mexican state. So in terms of technology, it's extremely important. And so while I may not have Wi-Fi from time to time, I invest in other tools to make sure that my technology is on point, because if I didn't have access to technology and the digital economy, I wouldn't be able to do this.
And I'm wondering, this is for both of you, because one is an economist, that being you, Jack, and everything, and Kerra, you've done political consulting. It seems to me that we have definitely reached a new era, because it seems like all of our politicians are constantly communicating with each other, sometimes to our chagrin, through the social media. Because like I said, I am actually a big fan. I know everybody is not, but I'm a big fan of AOC, and I'm not a big fan of the person currently in the D.C. offices where the White House stays and the president stays. But it seems to me that both of those individuals are constantly communicating through Twitter and other means of communication. So it seems like even in the political world, we're in a whole other world. So I just wondered if you could both comment on, is my perception correct that this is a whole other kind of universe that we're living in, and that this is going to be the new age where, before you might have gone to the newspapers and laid out your opinions there in your platform, but now it seems that in order to reach the millennials and even some that are in my age range, even in the 50s, there are people in the 50s that are very much attached to Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature. But I just wondered, both of your perceptions of the new wave of communicating through the internet and through other digital platforms.
I certainly see that, and I would say that, the technology has also given voice to folks who wouldn't have had a voice before. The democratization of information and the free flow, of folks who have never had any stage before, let alone, a national or global stage, and the ability to include so many different perspectives that would have been easily ignored in the past by those who had the platform. Now we can see the inclusion and we can see the affirmation. We're at an inflection point in our culture, and I think it seems like, we went through a period of time where folks were pretty terrible and nasty to each other, and it's not that that's going to go away, and I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish about it. But at the same time, we are seeing folks move to, new heights and, being more tolerant and being able to understand that, their perspective, no one says it's wrong because they have a different one. We can all share that and see, where we have the resonance and where we don't.
And what were you going to say, Kerra? You were getting ready to jump in that conversation as well.
Sure. I mean, in addition to being a political consultant, I was also the director of communications, outreach, and oppositional research for the North Carolina Democratic Party, and I was also a journalist for the Asheville Citizen-Times. So from my standpoint, the democratization of social media in politics has its good and bad points. On the plus side, it allows politicians to directly get their message out to the consumer or to the voter without having, the expensive TV ads or the ads in the newspaper. So in a sense, you cut out the middleman, and it also allows constituents to directly communicate to their public officials, their elected officials. The bad part is that sometimes there could be shouting matches going on, and sometimes our politicians go off script, which is good for the people so they can see how they actually are. But if you are in my former job, it would just give you a heart attack. But I think that discussion is overall, it's a good thing. And I wanted to circle back to something that I didn't mention. One of my clients is called buildinganewreality.com. And it's founded by Ted Wachtell. Ted Wachtell is the same man who founded the International Institute for Restorative Practices. And one of the projects that he's about to launch is called True Representation. And what he does is he takes other models of public decision making. He almost wants to decentralize decision making, and so he's looking at things like sortition and lottery, election by lottery, and other methods to have public policy decisions made. And it's really exciting that the digital age allows us to engage in these new conversations and see what kind of possibilities are out there.
Yeah, because I imagine that at some point we're going to have, and I don't know how I actually feel about it, but the Electoral College may be on its way out at some point or another, and we may actually have real popular elections where it's actually, by the majority and done popularly. But then I kind of wondered if it becomes almost like some of those television shows that were out there where the vote determined the winners and everything. But then, as we know, people might load the voting because, if you're going to do it by telephone, who's to say that you can't call 100 times or 200 times or however many times and inflate it one way or another? So I'm wondering how we're going to be able to regulate some of the things that they have talked about. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I wonder if any of you have any thoughts on how the digital age might possibly change the political landscape in the near future or in the even distant future.
Well, to follow up, in Ted's book, True Representation, which I think is out this week, and I can send you a copy, he lines out experiments. There have actually been controlled experiments that happened. One happened with, I think his name is James Fishkin in Texas, which is, we all think of oil as an oil state, and they wanted to introduce some alternative energies. And what they did was they created these briefing books, and they brought a group of citizens in, randomly selected citizens, to look at these briefing books and consider the evidence. And by the end of, I think it was like a 2-day weekend, that the citizens had decided on their own to go with the alternative energies. The evidence was not skewed one way or another. It was just merely objective. So there are experiments happening not only in the United States, but also in Spain, Belgium, the UK. So people worldwide are looking at how does democracy look different in the 21st century and beyond. And I'm sure that digital technologies and digital advances will play a huge role in that.
We're seeing that in Columbus, Ohio as well. I'm a volunteer. I help with the Smart Columbus Initiative, where digital information and access to resources is being provided, doing a lot of services, and a lot more focus on service provision than the political side of things. For example, there's a transportation program for expectant mothers for neonatal care, and being able to match up the right kind of transportation and provide information on services, including geolocation, to get to critical services as well as wellness services. So we're going to see more and more services provided, that are just not possible through something other than a government platform, and in a way that is very respectful of the constituencies. In fact, my particular role is on the policy side around privacy. So I know Columbus is really investing in, and the Department of Transportation has given them a grant to continue to grow the Smart Columbus program, which will serve all of our communities.
Now, Kerra, I was reading one of your past columns. It was actually one from a month and a half ago, and it's something that I can definitely relate to, because I think that even individually we have a habit of how can I put it, apologizing but not really apologizing. And it seems that that's one of the things you were talking about with the whole welcome to the age of apology. I forget how you phrased it, but it's basically how a lot of our, and a lot of people, we do that all constantly. I mean, even in our social world and even in our common world, whether it's with our kids, and you've got kids, I don't have any, but whether it's with kids, whether it's with nephews, whether it's with friends, or whether it's even with significant others, we have a habit of apologizing, but maybe we're really not apologizing.
So you're asking me about whether we're apologizing now or what's going on now?
Yeah, what's going on, and if you would just share a little bit about where that column came from and